Victims: which cases made you consider your own lawyer to be God? Story 1. A 29-year-old male was falsely accused of harassment by a woman, a 26-year-old female I barely knew, and it nearly destroyed me. This happened last year, but it still messes with my head every day. I haven't really told the full story anywhere, but I think I need to get it off my chest. I, a 29-year-old male, work in a mid-sized tech firm in Seattle. I mostly keep to myself, focus on my work, and don't really socialize much outside of my small team. One day, a new hire, a 26-year-old female, joined our department. Let's call her Erin. She was friendly, charismatic, and instantly popular with everyone. I was polite to her, but that was about it. A few hellos in the hallway, a comment here and there in group meetings, nothing personal. After about 2 months, I noticed Erin acting cold toward me. I assumed it was nothing personal, maybe just her personality or something going on in her life. Then I got an email from Human Resources requesting a meeting. I had no idea what it was about. When I showed up, they sat me down and said a complaint had been filed against me for unwelcome attention and stalking behavior. I swear my heart stopped. I asked them who had filed it. They wouldn't tell me at first, but eventually, Erin's name came up. I was stunned. She claimed I had followed her to her car multiple times, stared at her in meetings, and made creepy comments about her clothes. None of it was true. In fact, we'd never even had a one-on-one conversation. I was so confused. Human Resources said they'd be conducting an investigation, and that I'd be put on work from home pending review. I went home in a daze. I started combing through everything, emails, Slack messages, meeting notes, looking for anything that could be misinterpreted. There was nothing. I didn't sleep that night. Over the next week, Human Resources interviewed several people. Most said they never noticed anything weird from me, but one guy, who I later found out had a thing for Erin, said I did seem quiet and intense. Whatever that meant. Then the twist came. One of my coworkers, a 33-year-old female, let's call her Dana, reached out to me privately and said something didn't feel right. She told me that Erin had made a weird comment at happy hour the week before. Something like, I bet I could get me fired if I wanted to. Dana thought she was joking at the time, but now it didn't seem like a joke. I told Human Resources about it and gave them Dana's name. Dana agreed to talk to them. She even mentioned Erin laughing about how easy it is to get in a guy's head when he's socially awkward. After that, the investigation took a turn. Human Resources pulled building security footage. Turns out I had never been near Erin's car. Multiple timestamps contradicted her claims. She said I made comments in meetings I wasn't even in. Eventually, Human Resources concluded there was no basis to her claims. I was cleared. Officially. But unofficially, people still whispered. Some coworkers avoided me. Erin wasn't fired. She was moved to another department. I never got an apology. Not from her, not from Human Resources. Nothing. It's been almost a year, and I still feel like I'm walking on eggshells. I hate how easily it all could have gone the other way. If Dana hadn't spoken up, I might have lost my job and reputation over nothing, anyway. Just needed to get that out there. Story 2: former business partner stole from me and wants me to drop the lawsuit, but I won't. For the past 4 years, I, a 30-year-old male, ran a small tech startup with my business partner, Ryan, a 32-year-old male. We built everything from the ground up. Splitting responsibilities, he handled finances and operations, while I focused on development and client relationships. We weren't just business partners. We were friends. Things were going well until about 3 months ago when I noticed some discrepancies in our financial records. At first, I thought it was just a mistake, but the more I looked into it, the worse it got. Money was missing, thousands of dollars in unexplained transfers. I confronted Ryan, and after some initial deflection, he admitted that he had been borrowing money from the business account to cover personal debts. He swore he was going to pay it back, but at that point, I didn't believe a word he said. I told him we were done. I immediately took steps to remove him from the company and filed a lawsuit against him for financial fraud. That's when the guilt tripping started. Ryan begged me to reconsider, saying that a lawsuit would ruin his career. He even had his family reach out, telling me I was overreacting and that he was just in a tough spot. He tried playing the victim, saying he had planned to tell me and that I was being too harsh by taking legal action. Then last week he texted me again, this time saying he had a new job lined up but that if the lawsuit went forward, they'd find out about the fraud and he'd lose the opportunity. He begged me to drop it, promising to pay back every cent, but I don't care. Actions have consequences. He didn't think about my company's future when he stole from me, so why should I care about his? I told him once that this was final, and I meant it. The lawsuit is moving forward, and I have no regrets, so now he's losing his job opportunity, and I'll get back what's owed to me, one way or another. He can keep messaging me all he wants, but I won't change my mind. This video does not promote illegal activity. Shared for commentary. Story 3: My boss fired me and kicked me out, then tried to sue me over code that I own. Now his company's crashing and burning, so, about 3 years ago, I got hired by a mid-sized tech firm because of a project I built back in college. A lightweight but powerful back-end system that dramatically boosted server efficiency and automated certain maintenance tasks. I had showcased it during a tech conference, and the original chief executive officer of the company saw it, reached out to me personally, and said, "We want you and whatever that is." We made a deal. I'd join the company, integrate my system, and work as lead back-end developer. I retained full rights to the intellectual property, and it was even listed under my name in the U.S. Patent Office, something they were fully aware of. Fast forward 2 years. The original chief executive officer retires and sells his shares to a younger, arrogant new guy, let's call him Mark, who's obsessed with efficiency and modernizing the company. First thing he does: cuts costs. Fires people left and right. One day, without warning, he calls me into his office and says, "We're letting you go. Your skill set isn't aligning with our vision anymore. No severance. No thank you. Just get your stuff and leave." I asked, "You sure about this?" He just smirked and said, "We'll be fine." So I left. Took my personal items, cleaned up my workspace. But here's the kicker: they were still using my system. The same system that was running all of their back-end processes, license registered under my name. At first, I said nothing. I wanted to see what they'd do. About 2 weeks later, I get a letter from their legal team accusing me of sabotage. They claimed that I had embedded ownership traps in the code to retain rights and were threatening to sue me for interference with business operations. It was laughable. I didn't have to embed anything, because the patent was already mine. I had documents, timestamps, emails from the original chief executive officer, and even the signed contract that clearly stated I was simply licensing them the tech. My lawyer responded with a calm, polite version of, "Nice try, dummies." Not only did their claim get thrown out immediately, but once they realized they didn't have legal rights to use my system anymore, they had to shut it down, which basically took their entire operation offline. Clients dropped. Revenue plummeted. Investors pulled out, and me. Well, I had already been working on a new version of the system with a few people from my old dev team, some of whom Mark also fired. We launched a new startup 6 months later, leaner, faster, smarter, and some of their former clients came knocking on our door, last I heard. Mark was stepping down to pursue other opportunities, which is code for he got kicked out. The company still exists, but it's a shell of what it used to be. Funny how your skills don't align with our vision anymore. Turns into, "Please can we buy back your code real quick?" Story 4: The 3 times my ex-wife tried to take my daughter away from me and move to another state. This happened about 20 to 25 years ago, so I am telling this story to the best of my recollection. After our divorce, I had one day less than a 50-50 parenting split. My ex-wife refused to give me 50-50 in mediation because she just had to win. After about a year of being divorced, I got a summons in the mail to appear in court. My wife was trying to permanently take my daughter away from me. She made up a bunch of stuff, but the basis of her argument was that I was participating in deviant sexual behavior. I had a difficult time finding a lawyer because of this. Without even talking to me, the first several lawyers I spoke with didn't want to touch the case as soon as they read that in the summons. Eventually, I found a great attorney, though. He was not cheap, however. In court, her lawyer put her on the stand, and she told the judge a bunch of nonsense she thought was going on at my house in regards to the deviant sexual behavior between me and my girlfriend. She did, however, say that she had no idea if my daughter had been exposed to anything she was accusing me of. But it wasn't safe for my daughter to stay with me because of what she suspected was going on. On the stand, she also said that she had a job and a place to rent waiting for her in another state that she wanted to move to, about 300+ miles away. In addition, she also said that she visited her boyfriend in this other state on the weekends. She said that she only took our daughter with her occasionally, since the parenting split gave me time every Saturday, and that made it difficult for her to leave after work on Friday to see her boyfriend, and then have to return the next day. Note: this meant when she had our daughter on Friday, she had to leave after work on Friday with our daughter to go see her boyfriend, and bring our daughter back to me every Saturday, since I got our daughter every Saturday, either at 8 a.m. or at noon, alternating Saturdays. It is what she had agreed to in mediation, and how she got her extra day a month. It was kind of complicated how I had some days every other week. She had some days every other week, but I got our daughter every Saturday, either starting at 8 a.m. or at noon on the weekends, or she could leave our daughter with me and give me extra time above the court-ordered amount if she wanted to leave after work on Friday to see her boyfriend, and not have to come back till she had to be to work Monday morning. This is what she did most weekends. The other option was to ask me for permission to take our daughter out of state and keep her on Saturdays, which I allowed occasionally, but not often. She was absolutely hated that she had to ask me for permission. Oh well. It was the deal she originally agreed to in mediation. Love me some karma. So anyway, when her lawyer got done asking her questions, my lawyer got up and asked her his first question. Is the parenting plan that you have been using to go to this other state that you have worked out with your ex-husband something that you have done because it is in the best interest of your daughter? Freaking genius question. That is what I paid the big bucks for. She kind of hemmed and hawed for a bit and then said, yes, I mean, what else could she say no? Laughing my ass off. Then, as my lawyer started to ask his second question, something very unexpected happened. The judge held up his hand and sternly said to my lawyer, "Go have a seat. I have some questions for her." My lawyer turned to walk back to our table with a look of surprise on his face. When he sat down next to me, he whispered to me, "I have no idea what's happening." He's never done this before. The judge then asked my ex-wife, "If your daughter came up to you and asked you if it was okay to have premarital intimacy, what would you say to her?" My ex-wife started to visibly squirm in her seat and she started to say, well, when she turns 18. The judge cut her off and said, "No? Right now, at 8 years old, if your daughter asked you if it was okay to have intimacy with someone that you weren't married to, what would you tell her?" As she squirmed even more, her reply was something like, well, I'd say no, Your Honor." The judge then lashed out at her and said something very close to, "Well, by taking your daughter to your boyfriend's for the weekend, that is exactly what you are telling her." And as he pointed to me, "I don't care what this man does in his private life with his girlfriend. As long as your daughter is not being exposed to it, then what you are doing is worse than anything he is doing, and it is none of your business." He banged his gavel and said, "This case is done." My lawyer then jumped up and said, "Your Honor, we would like to move that the parenting plan which they have worked out between them currently, that is different from the original court order, be made permanent." The judge then replied, "We are going to take a 15-minute recess for the two of you to work it out between you, and when I come back, if you don't have something worked out, then I will work it out for you." And he walked out. So we worked out that we would use the original parenting plan of 50-50 minus 1 day. But I would also now get all weekend every weekend, from when my ex-wife got off work on Friday until Sunday night. When adding up the hours now, it ended up that I got just under a week extra than what I had before. When the judge returned and we told him this plan, he accepted it. And then he also reduced my child support to account for me now having my daughter the extra days every month. So I ended up getting more time with my daughter every month, and a reduction in my child support. All by court order. My ex-wife was also humiliated on the stand by the judge. It was a good day. My ex-wife was furious because she thought the judge was going to allow her to move and take my daughter with her. Oops. Karma. Laughing out loud. An important thing that I got out of all this was that her real reason for wanting to move was to live closer to her boyfriend. Her made-up stuff about deviant sexual behavior was her way of trying to get the court to let her move without having to be honest about why she wanted to move. She figured that just her wanting to live near her boyfriend wasn't going to be a good enough reason for the court, so she had to make up something that was going to be a big deal to the judge. Yeah, well, the judge saw right through her nonsense. Part 2 and 3 are not nearly as good. However, what happened to me after the third subpoena to appear in court was icing on the cake. Hang in there and follow along. It should be worth the wait. Update: the one thing that I forgot to mention in Part 1 was that my great lawyer cost me $10,000 up front for the first court appearance. I really didn't have much of a choice but to hire him. As I said in Part 1, I had met with several lawyers prior to meeting with him, and everyone turned down my case the second they read that I was being accused of deviant sexual behavior. About 6 months later, I got served papers to appear in court again. My ex-wife was trying to take my daughter away from me and move 300+ miles away once again. This time, however, she is more honest, and her reasoning is that she is now engaged to be married to her boyfriend, and she wants to move closer to him. Her thinking seems to be that since she is engaged to be married, the judge will look differently on her efforts to move 300+ miles away and take my daughter away from me. I hire the same lawyer, and it costs me another $10,000. The day before we are to appear in court, I got a phone call from my lawyer telling me that the court date is being postponed by 1 week. He says that my ex-wife's lawyer had a family emergence. Her lawyer's father has suddenly become very ill, and so he needed to take some time off to deal with the situation. Remember this part. It becomes important at the end of Part 3. A week later, we appear in court, and her new lawyer really has it together for her case. We also have a different judge this time. Come to find out that the previous judge was filling in for this new judge because this judge had some medical condition that needed to be attended to at the time of the first court appearance. Her lawyer puts her on the stand, and she explains how she has a job waiting for her that is exactly the same as her current job, and all sorts of stuff as to why moving will be a great thing for our daughter. When it's my turn to testify, I get to tell the judge how I am a very active father in my daughter's life, how I attend all of her sports events even when it's not my parenting time days, how I take her to the science museum, as well as many other fun and educational activities. When we are both done testifying, the judge starts to give his ruling. With what he is saying, and as he is explaining his decision, it seems like he is going to rule for my ex-wife and allow her to move and take my daughter. When I realize what is about to happen, I interrupt the judge. I'm almost in tears, and I say, "Your Honor, please don't take my daughter away from me." Immediately after I say this to the judge, my lawyer stands up, and he reminds the judge of a specific law in the state that we are in. The law basically says that one parent can only be allowed to move and take a child away from the other parent if the reason for moving is somehow going to be a significant improvement in the life of the parent who wants to move. For example, if she was being promoted to a new position, or had a new job waiting at the new location that involved a significant pay increase. This law did not say that a future marriage was a good enough reason. She had just testified that the job she was being offered was the same rate of pay as the job she currently had. Nothing else in her testimony was any sort of significant improvement to what she was doing currently. The judge agreed and ruled against her moving away and taking our daughter with her. The judge told her that she was allowed to move away, but she was not allowed to take our daughter with her. Once again, and now $20,000 poorer, I won in court. But now I was broke. Update: just 1 week later, I get served papers to appear in court again. She now has a new plan to get the judge to allow her to move 300+ miles away and take our daughter with her. My lawyer calls her lawyer, and he finds out that she is now married to the boyfriend, and she thinks that this is going to change the judge's decision this time. She is still living in our home state, however. and her new husband is living 300 plus miles away. My lawyer tells me that is not the law as mentioned in our prior court appearance, and it isn't likely the judge is going to change his decision. But the judge may now consider their combined incomes, as well as their housing, to be an upward benefit to her moving away with our daughter. So the judge may decide in her favor this time. My lawyer also tells me that it will be another $10,000 for him to represent me again in court, unfortunately, after already paying $20. For his legal representation the previous 2 times I was broke. Don't get me wrong, his services were worth every penny. I just didn't have anywhere close to another $10,000. My lawyer tells me that even if I win this time, my ex-wife is probably not going to give up, and she will keep dragging me to court until I am broke, and I give up. I tell him that I am already broke, so he comes up with a suggestion. My lawyer suggests that we make her an offer. And maybe I want to consider moving the 300 plus miles away, so that I can keep my 50-50 parenting plan in place. He says that she is so desperate to move that she will probably accept just about anything if I agree to let her move to the other state and she can move with our daughter. So, after discussing it with him, this is the proposal we come up with to offer her. If I allow her to move and take our daughter, I get every other weekend with my daughter, every holiday. And summer with our daughter. She puts our daughter on her health insurance. She will meet me halfway to exchange our daughter both ways for my parenting time. If I am able to move to be near my daughter's school district at some point in time, I get to have an exact 50-50 parenting plan. 1 week with me and 1 week with her, alternating weekly, if at some point in time I am able to move to this other state because of the expense I have to deal with for moving, as well as my need to uproot my business, relocate it, and start over from scratch, I will no longer be required to pay her child support. This sounds good to me. I have my lawyer draw up the proposal and give it to her lawyer. Within 24 hours she agrees, signs the agreement, and my lawyer submits it to the court. The agreement is approved by the court. She has no idea that I intend to get moved to the new state as soon as possible. You see, what she knows at the time is that I run a business in the state I currently live in, and I have a lot of local customers that I depend on to earn my living. I don't think that it even crosses her mind that I would even be able to move anytime soon. What she doesn't know is that a couple of months prior I had hurt my back rather badly. I was not able to provide services to my current customers, and I had to slowly cut back on providing the services to them as our contracts came to an end. I had also stopped taking on new clients until I could get surgery on my back. It was a good time to move in regards to my business. What she also didn't know was that to make up for the loss of income from my back troubles, I had started an online business that was growing, and with this income, I was going to eventually be able to move. Sooner rather than later, over the next 3 months, I started to plan for my move to the new state. I also had back surgery, had a ruptured disc removed, and I was able to get around fine once again. Through this 3 months, we did the whole meet halfway every other weekend thing so I could spend time with my daughter. As agreed, during this 3 months my online business really started to take off. I was making more money than with my previous business, and I would soon be able to relocate and continue the online business. So, with the money that I was making, I rented a house near my daughter's school, and I commuted back and forth the 300 plus miles every other week. I now had my daughter 50-50, and I no longer had to pay child support. My online business was growing, and I took the next 3 months to wrap up my life in the current state that I was living in. Lease expiring where I was renting, etc. Then I made the move permanently. Leaving the previous state behind, I was now living full-time in the new state, running my growing online business from home, and having my daughter 50% of the time. But this story gets better. About a month after I was living in the new state full-time, I got a phone call from my daughter on an evening that she was staying with her mother. My daughter was in tears, told me she couldn't stand living with her mother, said that she was standing outside, down the road a bit from her mother's house, and asked me to come get her. So I jumped in the car, picked up my daughter, and brought her back to my place. From then on until just before my daughter's high school graduation, when she made up with her mother, I had my daughter 100% of the time. Through that whole time we never heard from her, and she never bothered me again. I was a full-time dad, and my life revolved around taking care of my daughter. It was awesome, but it gets even better. I left out a part back when I was still living in the previous state, just after I had my back surgery. One day I was shopping at the local mall, and I ran into my lawyer. As we made small talk for a bit, he says to me, "I want to tell you a story about that second time we had to go to court, but you have to promise to never tell anyone." And I agreed. He proceeds to tell me the following story. He tells me that the other day at the courthouse, he ran into the lawyer she had first when we were going to court the second time. The one that bailed out on her the day before we were supposed to be in court. My lawyer asked him, "How's your dad doing?" And my lawyer said that at first he had a confused look on his face, like he had no idea what my lawyer was referring to. This other lawyer then realized why my lawyer asked him this, and he proceeded to tell my lawyer that his dad was fine and was actually never sick. He then told my lawyer that he just made that up because he no longer wanted to represent my ex-wife, because she was an evil witch and he couldn't stand her. He figured that the court would buy his reason for bailing out on her at the last minute, and it worked. Well, that's the whole story. I hope you have enjoyed reading it. This story is as true as my memory allows, 20 to 25 plus years later. If you have made it this far, I thank you for reading, and I appreciate the opportunity to finally share this story with others. Story 5. A 30-years-old male wife, a 33-years-old female, lost our baby. We divorced and now I'm moving on. Well, my wife, now ex-wife, was 2 months pregnant. When she found out she was pregnant, she asked me to talk and told me that halfway through our relationship as a couple and half a year before our marriage, she cheated on me with her best friend, with whom she currently has no communication. Currently, we have been married for 8 years, and she told me that she wanted to confess it because a child was going to be a change in our lives, and that she wanted to start it off right in order to be good parents. In her words, it's for having a clean beginning. I obviously asked her the most logical question of all. I asked her if that child was really mine, knowing that if she cheated once, she could have done it more times, for some reason that made her cry. I was totally angry with her, but I didn't want to hurt her. However, I didn't want to comfort her either. So I left the room and went to another side of the house to think about my action plan. Hours later, I was sitting in the sofa. During those hours, I did not go to see her at any time. I did not want to see her face. I heard her calling me, almost screaming. I approached her, and she was in the bathroom bleeding quite a bit down there. We went to the hospital, and apparently she had a miscarriage. According to the doctor, it was not something forced nor product of some medication. Maybe it was an emotional shock, something that already happened to her before. While she was sitting on her stretcher waiting to be discharged, she asked me what I thought about all this. I just said that maybe it was for the best since a child would make more difficult the divorce. Words that made her cry again. I'm not going to lie, I love her, but at the same time I don't trust her anymore. If she could hide a slip for almost a decade, I don't know what else she could have hidden. Maybe this is just the tip of the iceberg. The only thing that haunts me now is to know if that son was mine or not. According to her, she has been faithful to me since then, and she never spoke or saw any man other than me, which I did not ask her to do. But obviously I also have to question that. Our relationship was quite good. But now I also have to doubt if every good deed she did for me was out of true love, or it was just guilt for cheating on me. Anyway, I'm already planning a divorce. Thank God that son wasn't born, because otherwise everything would have been more complicated. As I said, I love her, but I can't live knowing every action she made for me could be a lie. And also, I'm not forgiving a cheating. Now I want to clarify one thing. In my country, there is something called divorce by mutual agreement, which is a process that lasts less than a month, which you will not go to any trial, just a signing of papers by both parties. It is made clear that we both want a divorce. The following conditions exist to be able to carry out this type of procedure. 1. Both must agree. 2. That 2 years or more have passed since their marriage. We have been married for 8 years. 3. If there are minor or older children with disabilities, everything related to parental authority, food, tenure, visits, guardianship must be resolved. We do not have children. 4. Not having property in common. We have separate finances. Well, 2 days later, she called me and told me to go to my father-in-law's house, where she is since her father picked her up from the hospital that night. To talk, I went with the papers that my lawyer had given me and that she had to sign in case I could convince her. I arrived. She was with her father, a 70-year-old man. She has not been related to her mother or siblings since she started university because her parents are separated, and she was the only one who wanted to stay with her father, so he is the only one with her. We talked about everything that happened, and after a few hours, she ended up signing all the papers. She asked me if I hated her. I told her that I don't feel the same love for her, but that I felt respect for her courage to confess something that she could have kept for her. I wished her good luck and told her to recover, that I love her but that I can't trust her anymore, and that the healthiest thing is for each one to get ahead on their own. We gave each other one last hug and kiss, and I told her I would take care of everything, and that if I needed anything, I would let her know. Now I just have to take the papers to be legalized by a notary, and then take it to the civil registries for the registration of the divorce in the civil registry, although I'm happy that this was solved the easy way. I still have a pain in my chest from everything that happened. I'll start therapy next week and I'll get through it, I guess. For those who wonder why I didn't consent to this infidelity even though it was almost a decade ago, I grew up in a family where both parents were unfaithful to each other and forgave each other. I ended up leaving that house as soon as I could because the discussions taking everything past in face were an everyday thing. I don't want to go through the same thing or make my future children have to hear the same thing that I heard. Now a week has passed. I have gone to the psychologist and I feel that I am improving. The truth is that I am very hopeful about the future, but I feel that I will have to be more careful in my next relationship. But at the same time, I do not want to mistrust my new partner. The truth is that this is very difficult, but I just have to move on. Yes, I already presented the notarized and signed divorce papers to public records. My status should change to divorced in less than 2 weeks. I don't know how my ex-wife is doing. I haven't called her, but at least she has her dad to support her. Too long, didn't read. I'm divorcing my wife after she confessed she cheated on me almost a decade ago. Story 6. My boss made me get hospitalized. Hi. I, a 22-year-old male, work as a teacher, but also do drag. Normally, I don't care about what people say about me. I'm used to them being mean to me for being gay, or doing drag, or really anything. Not really, I'm a sensible person, but my boss has taken it really far, so I've been teaching 2 years now, marvelous reviews from previous principals, and on my evaluations I always score a 100 with each of them. But my job category is still transitory, meaning that I am not permanent at any school I work at. Point is, on August it was time to change schools, and I landed on one 10 minutes away from my apartment, so I was excited. Here's where it all starts. First day of work, I meet the principal, and first thing coming out of her mouth is, well, I asked them, the Department of Education, for a male teacher. For me that was quite rude, but since I am aware that gayness is not something very understood in Puerto Rico, I let it slide. Soon I'd find out that she in fact was hated by the whole faculty, and I was in it for a raw surprise. Second thing she did to me was to call me out on how I dress. Normally I try to dress masculine because I know it makes parents feel more comfortable with me being their kid's teacher, but sometimes I can't just help it and I wear a dress. To be specific, heel-long, full-sleeve, flowy dresses, kinda like a tunic, so to speak. Thing is that according to the principal, she told me that the dress code, which I hadn't read prior this, stated that that way of dressing confused the children, and that she had consulted with lawyers and they told her she could file a lawsuit. Naturally, I was scared and promised to never go back in a dress to work. Week 2, ending August, I would later learn that this was all a lie, because I contacted the union and they informed me well. Third thing she did was plain abusive to the students. I had a field trip planned a month prior to an indigenous location. The topic we were working on at the time was Puerto Rico and its roots. She always approves field trips, had approved 5 thus far, and it was just 2 months into starting the school year. We sat together and discussed throughout, and she told me it was perfect. At first it appeared that she had approved it, but 1 week before the field trip, she wrote to me after work hours, telling me there was a worksheet that I needed to turn in so she could finally approve it. I couldn't see the message on time, for I archive anything work-related, until the next day that I open it at working hours. Next day she told the students it was canceled, and tried to blame it on me for not turning that document on time. September ending. Fourth thing was quite direct. She went to the parents and started asking questions, which I don't mind, but then went on to exhort them to submit a complaint and to sue me for my class was too difficult for the children. It should be noted that Spanish is the first language in Puerto Rico, and that when giving an English class, I'm tasked by contract to always speak English to the kids so they can learn it. However, I always translate as I give the class, but without compromising the objective of their learning. Nonetheless, some parents go to me and show me evidence, minutes, messages, and testimonies of her asking such things. I decide to not mess her up and just do an all-parents meeting. After that, they got to understand even better the purpose of the class, and some even went on to apologize to me for not contacting me sooner. October 5th thing she did was to literally assign projects to my course. In Puerto Rico, there's something called freedom of teaching, which means the teacher is the one that decides what to teach to the students. But she overruled that and stated that I was so new to teaching, she was going to step in and hand out what projects I should task my students with. It was demoralizing, but I'm a peacekeeper, so I just followed orders. October last thing she did pulled all my buttons. She started interviewing my students alone. No counselor, no school psychologist, no one but her. When I tell you this gave me nightmares and took me to the hospital with a near-fatal heart attack, I mean it. The students always tell me everything. They trust me, and that is something I value most. They told me that instead of her asking them questions, she was stating that I had abused them verbally, and that they shouldn't tell anyone they had that conversation with her. She was telling them what I'd supposedly said to them, and also that shall anyone find out about that, they'd be interfering with the law. They came back to me crying and asked me if that was real. I couldn't hold my tears and started crying. They all hugged me and called me the best teacher ever. November after that, my health started declining. I began to have nightmares about her. In real life she is very ugly and has an Annabelle kind of vibe look. The worst part, I could not sleep well, and I was so scared of even facing her in the hallway or anywhere really. I tried talking with the school's psychologist and she did her best, however, it seems the damage was greater than that help. End of November last week, December, my chest and head started hurting. I just took Advils and hoped for the pain to go away. It didn't. Over the past Wednesday, it got so bad I even took a calming supplement, recommended by a friend, which I had never done. It did nothing on me. By last Thursday, I was now on a 3-night streak of no sleeping at all, and my chest hurted so much and the ache was so intense, I had to go to the emergency room. Turns out, I developed some heart diseases, one of which is myocarditis. Your heart gets swollen and you risk having a heart attack. I would spend the next 4 days hospitalized. When given the clearance to go home, the doctor warned me that any kind of stress could detonate a heart attack. I'm scared because I've always been healthy and this stuff is a first. Viewer discretion is advised. If you or someone you know is going through a tough time, remember that help is available. Please reach out to a crisis hotline or mental health professional.